So just a bit of family history so you understand a bit about Château-Mouton-Rothschild. So the family bought the estate in the middle of the 19th century. Baron Nathaniel de Rothschild bought the estate. It's the gentleman just on the bottom on the left hand side. And he used to be a banker in London, so he didn't know so much about wine, but he wanted to buy the estate down here to be able to share his wine on his table with his friends, family. And believe it or not, but he never came here. He just bought the estate, but it was such a long journey from London to Le Pouilly back in the 19th century, so he never came. And we'll have to wait until the 4th generation, so his great-grandson, Baron Philippe de Rothschild, who is quite famous in the wine business, obviously in the Médoc, who came down here and who didn't want to be a banker. Baron Philippe fell in love with the place and decided to stay and work down here. So he did a little revolution about Château-Mouton-Rothschild as Baron Philippe decided to create the bottling on site, la mise en bouteille à la propriété. He wanted to be able to do the bottling right at the property, to be able to oversee the entire production till the proper end. And to inaugurate this bottling, Baron Philippe decided to create a special label as well. As you probably know that every single year the label for Château-Mouton-Rothschild is changing, so this is the proper identity of the estate. And the first label that came out was 1924, so almost 100 years ago. When this first label came out, it didn't work so well because Baron Philippe worked with a publicist who designed something very contemporary, full of colors, and it was such a big change for the wine clients that people didn't really like it. So it took Baron Philippe a couple of years, like shall we say almost 20 years, before the public starts loving this idea of having a new label different every year. Obviously, the family has worked with the biggest artists all around the world, like Salvador Dali, Joan Miró, Chagall, Kandinsky. We've got one from Picasso as well, and a couple of new recent artists like Anish Kapoor, Jeff Koons, or David Hockney. So you'll see that at Château-Mouton-Rothschild you cannot disconnect wine from art. It's very, very important, both of them. So in addition of this, Baron Philippe decided to buy two other properties. He bought Château d'Armaillac in 1933, which is literally just on the other side of the park behind Mouton. Maybe some of you saw the estate when you arrived. And then also Château Clairvillon in 1970, a bit later. So both of them are classified fifth groves. Mouton is the first. On the three properties we have got about 200 hectares of land, so it's a big property within the Pouilly population.
200 what?
Hectares. Hectares, yes. And in 1979, Baron Philippe decided to go into a big challenge. He went to the USA and he met Robert Mondavi, and together they created Opus One. And so that was his last big project, as he passed away in the late 80s. So after, he only had one daughter, so his daughter, Baroness Philippine, took over. But Baroness Philippine, she was quite well known in France, not as a wine business woman, but as an actress. She used to be an actress at the theatre, La Comédie Française. It's slightly different from the wine industry, but she decided to stop her career to dedicate the rest of her life to the estate and to the wine. So she's the one who created the second wine, Le Petit Mouton, and also Aile d'Argent, which is our white wine. We do have a small production of white wine, which is quite unusual in the Médoc, but we do. And she went into another partnership abroad in Chile this time with Concha y Toro to create Almaviva. So Baroness Philippine, she did also a lot of renovations within the property, especially the new vat house that has been inaugurated a couple of years ago. and which has got a bit of theatre inside it, in addition of being a technical building. And she passed away 5 years ago. So since it's her 3 children in charge of the property, Philippe Cérès de Rothschild, Camille Cérès de Rothschild, and Julien de Beaumarchais de Rothschild. So they do represent the 6 generations of the estate, still in charge. So shall we go back outside so I can take you to the technical building? Is that okay for you? All right, brilliant. And this building also works by gravity, so it's the fully gravitation system that house. So when we're harvesting, we drop all the berries on the first floor of the building to sort them out, and then to drop them in the tank straight away from the top. So I'll explain you a bit more how it works. So this is why we're going on the first floor. Now the name of the property, Château Mouton Rothschild. Do you know what does mouton mean in French?
Yes, the sheep.
The sheep, yes, indeed. But there's actually nothing to do with the sheep about the name of the estate, because mouton comes from an old French word which is motte, and motte is like a little mountain. Indeed, it's like a little hill actually. And our vineyard, especially where the property is located, where I showed you at the very beginning of the tour, this is the hill I'm talking about. So it's a very tiny hill, goes about 30 meters above the sea level, but this is one of the highest points of the Médoc. We're very proud of it. And this is also where we keep all the very old vines. Some of them are more than 100 years old. And this is also where we have got the deepest grave, what we call the grave, those white stones mixed with dark sand, which is very good for the Cabernet Sauvignon. So this little hill, the motte, gave a bit later the word motte, mouton, then mouton to the estate. Nothing to do with the sheep so far, but only when Baron Philippe arrived at the beginning of the 20th century, he wanted to choose a logo to represent his estate in France and all around the world. And because he was born in April, he simply decided to use his astrological sign, the Eris, the ram, le bélier in French, to represent Château Mouton Rothschild, and also because he wanted to get people slightly confused between the sheep, mouton, and the ram from the astrological sign. So yeah, it was kind of funny from himself to play on words with that. And obviously the ram has become very iconic to represent Château Mouton Rothschild all around the world, especially on the labels. We've got quite a lot of representations of the ram on the labels, so we'll be able to see a couple of them during the tour. Amongst those ones. So let me take you on the other side of the lift so I can show you where we are collecting the berries from. Almost 91 hectares of vine for Château Mouton Rothschild. We've got 80% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 16% of Merlot, 3% Cabernet Franc, and 1% Petit Verdot. So obviously, this proportion of different grapes varietal will be represented into the blend of our wine later. Although every year the blend of Château Mouton Rothschild is changing, purely because of the weather, the quality of the berries, the whole vinification, the tasting. So there's many factors that we can consider. When we're harvesting, and this is the case for the 3 properties, Clermont, Armagnac and Mouton Rothschild, we do everything by hand. So we'll need between 400 and 500 people to collect all the berries. So it's another big team to manage. When we are harvesting, we start the selection straight away from the plots during the harvest. So we do not collect all the berries at once, but we usually start with the Merlot because they're ready first, and then we tend to push the maturity a bit longer onto the Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is why we finish by them. And this is also why usually harvest time can take up to 3-4 weeks sometimes. Because for example, in 1 week, we can do like 3 days of harvest, and then we have to stop because our technical team considers that the maturity is not good enough, so we'll wait a bit longer. And sometimes we do not have enough people because we have to collect big plots, so we need to, as employees, we need to come and give a hand as well. So yeah, we have to be very organized, and we really have to wait until the berries are perfect, basically. So all the berries from Rotilde, we are collecting them down here, then we drop them down here on the first floor. So after we've done this first selection, we do a second selection on sorting tables, you know, shaking tables. Then we are destocking the grapes, so we don't keep the stem at all, only the proper berries. And then we do a third level of selection using the optical sorting machine. Have you ever heard of that machine before? You're quite familiar with it? Yeah?
Yes.
It's just in a couple of words for those who don't know. It's a very high technological machine. It works with pictures, lasers, and it selects the berries that we're more interested in, considering the size of the berries, the texture of the pulp, the thickness of the skin, the size of the pips. There's loads and loads of parameters that we can consider. And as soon as we've decided on the best berries, the laser is pointing at the bad grape that we don't want to keep, and with the air pressure, just gets rid of it. So this is the slow version. The quick version, it does just like that to eject all the bad berries. It's less than 2% of the entire volume of the grapes that we do not keep, so it's still a small amount. Sometimes we do not use this machine, like for example in 2013, it has been quite rainy, and already when we started harvesting, we've already had a bit of juice coming out from the berries because the skin was very, very thin. And if we used this machine, we probably didn't keep anything. So we didn't do the optical machine on that. So we adapt our techniques to the climate as well and to the weather conditions. So at the end of the optical machine, we are collecting the berries onto big containers, like stainless steel containers. They're doing like cones. And those cones, we're taking them on the top of the vats to let the berries fall down by gravity to fill up the tanks by gravity. So this gravity system, we use it because we don't want to put pressure onto the berries and we do not want to damage the berries too much as well. But I'll show you after, you'll understand a bit better. All this sorting thing, we actually do not see anything of that down here because everything is hidden by the walls. And this was a proper request from the Baroness. You know, when she took over, when her father passed away, first of all, she was the first woman in charge after 5 generations of men, and moreover, she used to be an actress. So when she decided to renovate this building, she wanted to bring something a bit more personal to the estate, something a bit more theatrical as well. So she decided to hide a couple of things behind the walls, like we could hide things in a theater, like the backstage or the decor. But let me show you something else this way. We've actually got fake walls. They're just wooden panels that we can remove. So during harvest time, when we are collecting all the berries, we are removing all those walls on both sides to create a fully open space. So we've got 2 optical machines on both sides, so we can actually divide the work in 2. And it's a lot easier for our team to sort all the berries out. It's a lot more functional as well. And as soon as this period is finished, then we're putting the walls back on, so the public cannot see anything about that. So it is actually, it's very unique, slightly different, and don't worry, I will show you things, not everything, but we will show you things. So yeah, between September to, from September to November, this place looks like very, very different. A bit more technical and a bit more industrial as well. But the rest of the year, it's very quiet. So let's cross this corridor so I can show you the vat house. So this building has got a very specific architecture. It's a great combination between tradition, we've got wood pretty much everywhere, but at the same time there's a bit of a contrast with the metallic decor, the industrial lamps. They show more the new technologies that we can have here. See at the front, there's a black stain. There's actually 2 at the front. When you look proper into it, you can see that the entire process of the fermentation takes between like, shall we say, 1 month to a month and a half. So the alcoholic fermentation, the maceration and the malolactic fermentation are happening into the oak tanks. And at the end of the malolactic fermentation, around Christmas, we decide on the blend of the wine. So this is slightly different from other wineries. This is slightly different from what we do usually. Because usually we decide on the blend after the wine has been aged for a couple of months in the barrels. We do not do that. We'd rather do the blend before, because we don't want to have the impact of the barrel to mask a bit the flavors of the wine. So this is why we do the blend before. But open the space exactly the way that he wanted it. So at this point he used to open the doors from his private home on the other side. He could have
Give me a reason to get out of bed. I need a minute to think, or maybe two. 'Cause yesterday I lost control and said some things I felt that you should know. I need a day to clear my